Hello, and hope you're doing well. This is Dr. Daniel Sadiq, founder of Wheel of Wellbeing. Looking forward to speaking with you one more time about some important subjects that each of us deal with on a daily basis. I hope wherever you are in this beautiful world, you are making it even more beautiful. I know there are a lot of hardships, a lot of distraction, a lot of upsetting situations around us, and hopefully this will pass soon and we can be back in our usual ways of being, which hopefully this usual can even become better than it has been in the past. Because we are all growing beings, and as we are growing, we would like to make ourselves more familiar with issues that can distract us or keep us back. Uh, in order to go forward in life, we need to figure out where we are today and how we can just make our journey a better journey, a more successful journey, a happier one. Today, in order to get more familiar with ourselves and the issues that deal with our happiness, I have picked the subject of transparency. Transparency, you all know what it means. It means that we can see beyond something, we can see through something. We're not stuck behind a closed wall, and we can be more open to see further than just the immediate vicinity that we're in. So, in order to be transparent, number one is we would like to remove any obstacle, anything that gets in front of us and then doesn't allow us to see more. So we need to realize what is it that stopping us from seeing further? What is it that withholding that vision or the view? And these are not just really necessarily all the time the visual sense of thing or transparency. It's a lot more in our conversation. Transparency is in the context of our emotions, our feelings, how we are connecting with each other. It's the connection that we have with things. And if this connection is having some obstructions in front of it, guess what happens? Anxiety. When we're in the darkness, it would become scary because we cannot see what's going on around us. A small noise would be seen as or heard as something that is not familiar with us and can provoke us in certain ways. If we do not see around ourselves, the chances are we are more cautious, we are more in doubt, we are more agitated in order to protect ourselves. So our security is relatively more endangered when we're in the dark. You see how transparency becomes important, because now if our security is shadowed by dark, we are going to be more vigilant, more aggressive in ways of protecting ourselves. And then the lack of security or the insecurity causes reactions. And as you have always heard from me, reactions are our biggest enemy, because when we react, we are going to the midbrain, which is childish or animalistic, and it's not our prefrontal cortex, which is adult and more complicated in processing information. Then let's figure out what transparency requires and what happens if we are not transparent. So transparency requires honesty, but honesty is a little bit different than transparency at the same time, because transparency is how we are seen by others. Honesty is how we represent ourselves. So we would like to have this openness that we can allow other people seeing us the way we are without the filters that we are putting in front of us for other people not to see us. Our lack of transparency creates doubt and insecurity in others, and then our relationships are going to be affected because of that. So honesty is what we do, but transparency is what we represent ourselves, and we hopefully can be more transparent as we are being more open and being seen and heard easily without much hesitation. Secrets, lies, especially white lies that we think they're okay, a lot of times they create misunderstandings, misconceptions, and may seem deceitful to others. And this deceitfulness is, again, another lack of transparency, which is by other people is not appreciated, and they frown upon, and they would not like to be connected with us. So in order to build better connections and trusting relationships, guess what? We're required to be vulnerable, to be open, almost like being naked. If you're naked standing outside, obviously it may not feel very comfortable, but then again, if you get comfortable with that, then people can see you the way you are, and you're not embarrassed, ashamed about who you are. So there is a self-confidence required under transparency, because if I'm not confident about myself, about what I show, about how I'm presenting myself, obviously the chances of me being transparent and showing myself up is going to be less. So then now we go back to another element which we have discussed in the past, is self-confidence. How confident we are in ourselves. And being confident requires working on ourselves, making sure that we are in the appropriate or correct way of seeing, talking, discussing, visualizing things. Because this lack of confidence is doubtfulness, and then doubtfulness brings, again, the anxiety and self-defenses, and through the self-defenses we are not showing the possibility of growth and better connection. In relationships, communication is the key. Okay, and in order to have communications that are transparent, clarification plays a very important role. And clarification means being curious, asking questions without being intrusive. It's wondering, like a child. You see, one thing about children that's really adorable and valuable is how curious they are. They're not having any intent but learning something, knowing something. They're just authentically interested in figuring things out. So very cutely, they just ask you many questions. They want to know. Imagine if we would be like those children, and we just want to know without being intrusive, which is being nosy or meddling in other people's business. Curiosity is just wondering how things work, how things are, and people are open to respond to you when you come from an authentic place of curiosity. So in order to clarify things, first we need to be curious and ask what's going on, or explain what is going on for somebody else who's curious. Okay, so if somebody asks you a question out of curiosity, and then you are defending yourself like they're being intrusive, then right away you're going to have some miscommunication with them, because they're being open and authentic, and then you're closing off, and this is not going anywhere. Now, the chances are that one or both of you could be somewhat restricted in giving information, which is understandable. There's always a little level of privacy that needs to be kept. We don't have to share everything completely, but then we need to understand the boundaries that we create for ourselves, how rigid they are, how close we are. So without jeopardizing other people's situations or other people's conditions, we can be as open as possible, because it is about us. We are not putting somebody else at risk, or we're not doing something that makes somebody else uncomfortable. So if it's about us, we can be open, we can be clear about what's going on, and we can just communicate that with other people. But if it's about somebody else and they've told us to keep some limitations, obviously we are not going to jeopardize the confidentiality of the situation and become transparent in that way. So we have all the right to hold some information that are privileges of somebody else, and it's not under our jurisdiction to verify if it's okay or not to share them. Because if we've promised not to share something, obviously we can keep that secret. But now, keeping personal secrets for no reason, a lot of times coming from shame and embarrassments, because we are not so happy with ourselves. We are not so positive about who we are and how we function and what's important and what's not. So in order to be more secure, number one is having self-confidence, number two is being curious, and now number three is go into this communication by understanding your feelings. Feelings is something that is coming up in every conversation that we have. By now, you know how important your feelings are and how without knowing your feelings, you cannot take any steps. Unfortunately, most of the times we're not comfortable with our feelings, and then we have learned how to hide them, how to push them down. And that creates a lack of transparency, because if we even do not know our own feelings, how we can express them to someone else, how we can be clear about who we are, how we are, what we feel, what's our situation, what's our position to somebody else. Okay, so that understanding of feelings is something that I cannot emphasize enough. We have not learned that, and we need to practice that. Just notice, what are you feeling now? You're just hearing me, which is a sensation, but the feeling is that maybe you feel interested, maybe you feel concerned about what I'm saying, maybe you feel intimidated. There are certain different feelings that are coming up, and hopefully you can realize those feelings and process them accordingly. Okay? I apologize. So let's go further with this conversation and see how possible it is to be more vulnerable. Sometimes our cultures have not been inducive enough to our transparency. In certain cultures, many cultures, we are told that your business is your business, other people shouldn't know, let's keep it in the family, let's not talk about it. And keeping these secrets have become more obstacles on the way of having better relationships. In order to have a better relationship, we need to go beyond those cultural understandings. We need to realize that what we have learned is not necessarily the best solution, and these ways of being, behaving could be changed. We cannot be stuck with something because we're told so, because we're brought up this way. Although for sure they were not trying to damage us, they were not trying to influence us in a negative way. Regretfully, they might have, because we have learned how to be closed off. We have learned how not to participate. We have learned not how to expose ourselves to different things. Well, we have a brain that is very much capable of understanding, evaluating, and evolving. We need to be more respectful to this mind and allow it to decide responsibly. Our responsible choices are how we can process information and make this transparency possible. Because if we do not decide to be transparent, guess what happens? Our automatic defenses again are blocking us, and we're not going to see a very good positive way of dealing with stuff. Okay, so in order to have these feelings in a way that we understand, we need to have a vocabulary for them. We need to understand what these words are and how we can realistically express them, how we can realistically talk about them with other people. Okay? So these ways of expressing ourselves is a way that we can learn from reading many, many different words about feelings. In my book, Balancing the Wheel, there is a part of the book at the end of the book that's dedicated to the feeling words. There are at least 5 pages of feelings, positive feelings, negative feelings, and it requires understanding and learning. If we do not understand these words, if we're not relating with them, then it's very difficult to express where we are and how we are seeing ourselves. At workplace also, something important that often is missing is that transparency. As an employer or an employee, We have often believed that the less information we give, the better it is, and we can just mind our own businesses and going on. However, regretfully, productivity is dependent on the ways that we can be more transparent. The trust in what we do together can be affected by lack of transparency. So in a business world, just like in a personal relationship, transparency becomes very important. And part of what I work with companies when I'm privileged in consulting the firms is to teach the companies how a culture of transparency could be very valuable in these organizations, because it creates more trust in the foundation of the organization and how the employees and employers can become more connected, more productive in what they do together. There are certain points that build trust in an organization. Number one, again, is the team communication. If you are in a team, doesn't matter, your family could be a team also. We can understand that in a team setting, communication speaks first. We need to use what we have learned about clarity and feeling states that we can discuss in a communication. Although when we're talking about work, sometimes feelings are not the priority in the workplace. So the clarity becomes more about the process, what needs to be taken on, what are the actions that are required. And we cannot just guess that somebody will do this because we think they should. So we need to communicate that and be open about the prospects of somebody not being fulfilling their obligations, or we cannot just do exactly what we required. So we need to explain the reasons for what we do. Okay, if we do something, if we're behaving in a certain way, we're required to be understandable of our own actions and comfortable enough to explain why we're making a certain decision, why this is the way that we think, why is it important that we say this or we do this or we are suggesting this. So that clarification in what our decisions are about becomes very important in building trust. The next point is create some steps to discuss. So in order to be transparent, there must be a discussion, there must be a conversation. So we need to create the time for it. So we need to have daily meetings, weekly meetings, and within these meetings, we can bring up the points that are bothering us, the points that are important to be discussed. And through this way of processing, we can create a wonderful time that all the issues can come on the table and be out in the open. By not meeting and by not discussing the matters, things are not going to go so well, and we're going to have some issues in the process of whatever that we're doing, if it's work or if it's relationship. We need to be in touch with people who are also open. If you figure out that people who are on your team or even your family members are not transparent and they are secretive and they're holding back, these are not necessarily the best people that you can continue a healthy relationship with. You need to understand that when people are closed off and they don't want to open up to you, it's going to be a disturbance, a burden to you to just bang your head against a wall that is hard and you cannot penetrate and you cannot get through. So you need to understand that if this is the situation, this is not the place to enter. This is not the place that you want to be connected. And you need to understand that respecting their position, if they want to be closed off, they can be. But then you don't have to just stay there in that position and, again, be bothered with somebody else's lack of transparency or unwillingness to be open to situations. You need to be available. If you're not available, if you're not showing yourself, if you're not allowing people to be connected with you, obviously transparency is going to be questioned. So the more that we make ourselves available to situations, to people, to friends, to at work, especially with our employers or our employees, the easier it is to have these kind of communication which is more transparent. So your availability is a condition for having all of this. If you're hiding, if you're not available, if you're just behind the curtain, you're not going to be transparent. Be clear about the information that you're going to share. If you're not very clear yourself, then it's not going to be easy to be transparent, because whatever you say, if it's not thoughtful, if it's not understood by you, it's going to be considered as uh, some sort of a deliberate action to deceive. So you need to have full information and understand what is it that you would like to discuss, what is it that you like to open up. Do your own personal work before going into any communication or situation. Be clear, be more transparent with yourself first before you can go out and be transparent with somebody else. And if you are not able to do that, help is always out there. You can seek help, you can understand yourself better, you can understand your feelings better, and you can be more clear about how you can be communicating with others. Know where you draw a line, okay? That's the issue of boundaries. Again, that's one of those subjects that's come up very often. We need to have boundaries. Although we want to be clear and transparent, when this is faced by disrespectfulness or lack of interest on the other party to be in the same or similar situation with us, then we need to understand where we are. We need to understand that this is our situation and the limitations that are in front of us, how we can pursue, perceive, and move on. So understand your boundaries, understand other people's boundaries, and then from then on, you can still practice your transparency. And lastly, respond positively to honesty. If people are honest to you and then you're shocked and you're upset or you're defensive about their honesty, that creates the notion that you're not interested to be transparent. So your lack of openness to other people's honesty and objective observations, even though if you may not be happy with what they're saying or how they're saying it or what's going on, still you have an obligation to yourself to be open to hear and understand what other people are saying. That's really important. I cannot emphasize on that. A lot of us regretfully are closed off and we're not willing to listen to other people. We are very difficultly we have difficulty being criticized. I understand being criticized is not pleasant, but if it's effective, it's going to be very helpful. And if you feel intruded upon, if you feel that these people are judging you, then you can simply hear them, see what part of it may be true or what part of it may not, and respectfully, you can just end that conversation without closing yourself off. Okay, be open to hear, be open to understand what is being said, even if it's critical of you, because it opens you up to certain possibilities that otherwise you wouldn't have. All of these subjects are in Balancing the Wheel, and if you have a chance to read the book, I think you can get a lot of clear messages on Balancing the Wheel. Our organization, Wheel of Wellbeing, is there to support you to be a better communicator, to be more effective in the ways that you process information in order to have a happier, healthier, and more successful life and a family and a work environment. You're required to educate yourself, to learn some new things and unlearn some of the old things that you have learned and they're not useful today. Many of the things that we have learned, like the need for not being transparent, is required to go away. We cannot move forward before we're moving backwards and clarifying the situation. The questionnaire that we have on the Wheel of Wellbeing, the quiz, is very interesting if you take it and you can see what areas you may be lacking or too strong in your presentation. So please take the quiz. Please figure out how these subjects relate to you, how balanced you are. Because if we are not balanced, it's very hard to be connected. It's very difficult to be transparent if we're not clear about our own shortcomings or excesses. Know yourself, know yourself, and know yourself. That's the location in being who we are, understanding where we are, who we are, how we function. My organization, myself, and my lovely wife, Coach Bonnie, we are here to support you in any possible way. If you feel that you would like to receive more of our information, please join the community on We'll Select in our website, and you can be connected with us directly. You can ask your questions. We can be there for you in any different setting that you are emotionally and mentally. Also, I do corporate counseling, and I'm glad to be with you in your company's decision making and your human resources, conflict resolutions. These are areas that we all need support. And as I was talking about businesses, transparency is really important, and I hope that you can keep that culture in your organization. I'll be glad to be with you at any capacity. I wish you the best, and I'm looking forward to our next time that we can open up this channel, and on Togetherness Media, together we go forward into learning more about ourselves, about our lives, about people around us. Hopefully these hard times are passing, and through them, I believe we have got stronger. We have felt that we can be better than who we've been. We can be more connected. We can be more open. And I'm feeling blessed to be here with you on different programs and bring you the information as I have learned it and sharing them with you. Have a blessed day until our next meeting. Thank you. Raise your vibration and re-engage with life. Find balance and reconnect with joy. Your vehicle is balancing the wheel, and we're here to support you in becoming more happier, healthier, and successful. wheelofwellbeing.com or drsadiq.com.
Do you have viruses or malware warnings? Have a problem with your computer and need help? 24 hours, 7 days. Computer Emergency Services. Convenience and savings at your fingertips. Download our free app and keep in touch.